Do you still remember Jackie Gleason? The man who could make all of America laugh with just a glance and his iconic catchphrase, "And away we go." But have you ever wondered, what was behind that laughter? Few people know that Jackie Gleason once claimed he was invited by the US government to a secret base to see the remains of a UFO. A far-fetched story? Maybe. But Gleason recounted it with a serious look in his eyes, and it was something he never mentioned publicly on television. Just like the mansion in Florida, the house where he spent his final years, completely cut off from the world. Now, that house lies silent in a windless land. The bottles of liquor remain untouched, the round bed covered in dust, and a letter never sent, written to the woman he lost. Jackie Gleason, the man who made a nation laugh, was he ever truly happy? Let's uncover the hidden corners of his life in this video. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Do you still remember that familiar opening tune, followed by the shout, "And away we go"? When all of America burst into laughter in a single moment. Jackie Gleason, a name forever etched in the memories of those who once sat in front of their black and white screens, where he shined as the brightest star. But the strange thing is, even though millions watched him every night, very few truly knew who he was. The man with a towering figure, bold gestures, and a sly wink became a national icon for over 3 decades. He was the king of television, the man who led an entire generation into the golden age of comedy. But behind the nickname, the Great One, as people fondly called him, was a restless soul, always searching for something beyond the spotlight. Jackie wasn't just famous, he was fame. From CBS's hit television shows to film roles that earned critical acclaim, Gleason seemed born to make everything feel larger than life. But that's exactly what's troubling. When a person lives his whole life to make others laugh, who is there to truly understand him? Behind the scenes, Jackie was an enigma. He refused to fly, haunted by a deep fear tied to a near-death accident. He was fascinated by UFOs, the supernatural, and owned one of the largest personal libraries in the US on paranormal phenomena. He wasn't just a comedian, he was a man trying to make sense of things humans never quite understood. His career, though brilliant, always carried a strange sense of distance. Wherever he was, no matter who he was with, Gleason always seemed to stand just behind the moment, watching himself play a role. He laughed, he spoke, he made others laugh, but in his eyes, there was sometimes a message left unspoken. And then, one day, he quietly stepped away from the spotlight, just as silently as he had observed his own life. When Jackie Gleason passed away, he didn't just leave behind sorrow. He left behind a string of unanswered questions. Before he became the Great One, Jackie Gleason was just a little boy growing up in Brooklyn, one of New York's impoverished corners. His father, Herbert, was an insurance clerk. His mother, May, worked as a seamstress, carrying the weight of the family on her shoulders. One day, when Jackie was just 9 years old, his father left the house to buy cigarettes, and never came back. No explanation, no letter, just a cold, empty space that lingered for the rest of his life. It was the first time Jackie experienced what absolute loss felt like, and also the last time he ever truly believed in the idea of a permanent home. From then on, his life became a constant journey to find a sense of belonging. No matter how famous he became, he was still that little boy, standing at the doorway, waiting for his father to return. His mother died when Jackie was just 19, leaving behind a young man with no education, no job, and no direction. But Jackie had one gift: the ability to make others laugh, even when he couldn't laugh for himself. During his early years performing on the vaudeville circuit, Jackie met Genevieve Halford, a sharp, no-nonsense dancer and the first woman who made him believe he could have a real home. They married in 1936 and had 2 daughters, Geraldine and Linda. But from the start, their marriage never followed the path of stability. Genevieve longed for a quiet family life, a dinner table without stage lights. Jackie was drawn back to the spotlight, to parties, to long, sleepless nights. The stage called to him, while loneliness pulled her away. They separated, reunited, then separated again, as if both were too afraid to be alone. But in 1954, a turning point came that could never be undone. Jackie was injured during a live television broadcast. The person who cared for him wasn't his wife, but Marilyn Taylor, a young dancer in the show. Genevieve found out, and from that moment, her heart shut down. Though their divorce wasn't finalized until 1970, their marriage had long been broken. In the years that followed, Jackie had 2 more marriages, one to Beverly McKittrick and finally to Marilyn Taylor, who remained by his side until the very end. To his daughters, he was a distant figure in family photographs. A famous father who drifted in and out. Especially for Linda, the daughter who followed in his footsteps into show business, but carried an ache she could never fully express. How do you love a father who lived more on screen than off it? Perhaps Gleason himself didn't know how to be a father. He only knew how to make audiences love him. And sometimes, in the sound of a million people laughing, he forgot how to whisper an apology to the ones closest to him. Jackie Gleason didn't need much to own the stage. A single wink, a short phrase, that was enough. In an era when television was still in its infancy, when American families gathered around black and white screens, he stepped out as if he were born to do just that. No acting school, no media strategy. Just instinct, and something inexplicably magnetic that made it impossible to look away. In 1951, he made history with the Jackie Gleason Show on CBS. It wasn't just evening entertainment, it was an event. Millions dropped everything every Saturday night to watch Gleason. He was the king of prime time, the man who brought laughter into the heart of the Cold War, the one who helped a nation exhale, if only for 60 minutes. But if that were all, Gleason would have simply been a talented comedian. What made him great was the honeymooners. As Ralph Cramden, a bus driver who always dreamed of something bigger, always failed in his foolish plans, but never stopped trying, Jackie Gleason touched something deep in the American heart. Ralph wasn't perfect. He was rough, hot-tempered, but strangely lovable. Like every dad, husband, or neighbor you've ever known. Alongside Audrey Meadows as his wife Alice, and Art Carney as his friend Ed Norton, Gleason didn't act, he lived. Each episode felt like a slice of real, everyday life. No glitz, no glamour, just truth, overflowing in every scene. The honeymooners ran for just one season, 39 episodes. But they were replayed endlessly, for decades afterward. Because people didn't just watch to laugh. They watched to remember. To return to a time when love and dreaming were all you needed. Gleason didn't stop there. He took on film roles too, Smokey and the Bandit, Jigget, and Nothing in Common, his final film, where he played a gruff but frail father opposite Tom Hanks. That role, near the end of his life when illness had drained his strength, became one of his most profound performances. Perhaps that was the moment Jackie Gleason stopped trying to make people laugh. He simply told the truth. And once again, it left people speechless. Some deaths don't come suddenly. They unfold slowly, in silence, not when the heart stops beating, but when the light inside a person begins to dim. For Jackie Gleason, tragedy didn't strike all at once. It crept into his life little by little, through every puff of smoke, every skipped vegetable, every night of overflowing drinks and laughter that lasted too long. As early as the 1950s, when he was CBS's brightest star, Gleason had adopted a lifestyle that doctors would later describe as systematic self-destruction. 6 packs of cigarettes a day. A diet heavy on red meat and sugar, no exercise. His weight fluctuated wildly, at times nearing 300 pounds, then dropping to just 185, almost as if his body were trying to keep up with the chaos inside his soul. Author Jim Bishop once wrote, "Jackie had 3 wardrobes for 3 different sizes, like 3 personalities living in one man." And indeed, Gleason was not always himself. At times, he was dazzlingly witty, other times, hauntingly withdrawn. By 1978, while on tour with the play Sly Fox, he suddenly experienced chest pains. A triple bypass surgery followed, not just a wake-up call, but a death knell. Gleason kept working, kept appearing on screen, kept smiling. But sharp-eyed fans began to notice something in his eyes, something that looked like a silent goodbye. Then in 1986, while filming Nothing in Common with Tom Hanks, Gleason was almost unrecognizable. Colon cancer had spread to his liver. Arthritis, diabetes, phlebitis, each illness like a supporting actor in the final performance of his life. But he told no one. No complaints. No cries for help. He kept performing, with the strength of a man who had long learned to hide every wound behind a laugh. And then, on June 24, 1987, Jackie Gleason took his final breath at his home in Florida. No lights. No cameras. No audience laughter. Just a quiet afternoon breeze, where the man who once made all of America laugh finally found peace. His funeral took place at the humble, solemn St. Mary's Church, as if he had never been a star, but simply a son returning to his Catholic faith after a lifetime of inner conflict. Jackie was laid to rest beneath the trees at Our Lady of Mercy Cemetery in Miami, near his loved ones. Close by lies the grave of his sister-in-law June Taylor, his longtime choreographer and spiritual companion throughout his career. They were together one last time, not in the spotlight, but in a quiet stillness, soft and kind. And perhaps, after everything, that was what Jackie Gleason had always been searching for, a place of peace, where he no longer had to make anyone laugh, just a place to finally be himself. People often imagine that celebrity homes are always warm, glowing with lights, and filled with laughter. But after Jackie Gleason passed away, something strange happened. Silence began to cling to the walls he once called his private paradise. Glay Manor, the 6,000-square-foot estate in Florida, was one such place. With 14 rooms, 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, 5 bars, an indoor aviary, and even a sauna, every brick was designed to serve a life like no other. It wasn't just a residence, it was a private stage, where Jackie hosted friends like Frank Sinatra, President Gerald Ford, and even the spirits he believed still lingered around him. But then, after his death, the laughter vanished. His wife, Marilyn Taylor, remained in the house for another 5 years. Then she too was gone. And Glay Manor, like a stage without its star, sank into stillness. In 1992, the mansion was sold for just $450,000, a shockingly low price considering the memories it held. Almost everything remained untouched: Gleason's personal liquor bottles at the bar, the iconic round bed in the master suite, the marble staircase, and the billiard room he designed with the legendary Willie Mosconi, all still there, covered in the dust of time. In 2015, the house was put up for auction, then relisted in 2016 for $299,000, less than its original construction cost. Once a symbol of wealth and laughter, it had become little more than a whisper from the past. But perhaps the most mysterious house of his life wasn't in Florida. The Roundhouse, a flying saucer-shaped home in Cortlandt Manor, New York, was where Gleason nurtured his passion for UFOs and the paranormal. With its bizarre circular architecture, a 240-ton fireplace, a supernatural library, and even a private broadcasting studio, the Roundhouse resembled a spaceship, a retreat where Gleason escaped the real world. Rumor has it that it was here he secretly hosted President Nixon for a meeting no one else knew about, to talk about extraterrestrials. That place still stands today, defying time, defying even oblivion. An architectural wonder once sold for just $150,000, then surged in value to $12 million as people realized it held the spirit of an artist like no other. And what about the fortune he left behind? Not as much as people assumed. He wasn't a millionaire like many of his peers. Jackie Gleason left behind a library on UFOs, a collection at the University of Miami, a few cinematic legacies, and countless unanswered questions. As for those houses, Glay Manor and the Roundhouse, they still sit quietly, as if waiting for someone to come home. Jackie Gleason once said, "The moment you believe you're great, you stop being yourself." That seemingly simple sentence holds the weight of a life lived between the spotlight and unnamed shadows. Some people leave the world behind with monuments, with their names engraved in gold. But Jackie, he left behind memories. Memories not housed in museums, but alive in the living rooms of countless American families. Those quiet evenings by an old TV, where Ralph Cramden's laughter softened parents' worries, brought the family closer, and made life, though difficult, a little easier to bear. But Jackie didn't just leave laughter. He left behind silence too. An unfinished symphony. A library of the unseen. A life that seemed as though he was always listening to something deeper, beyond the sounds of the stage. As if he believed that somewhere, beyond the blinding lights, something truer was waiting. You may not remember every role he played. You may never have noticed his name on a ranking list. But if at any point in your life you laughed, because of a big man with a slow stride, a gravelly voice, and the catchphrase, "And away we go." Then Jackie Gleason has already found a place in your memory. And that memory is his greatest legacy. It can't be bought. It can't be measured. It only exists if we choose to remember. So if today, you suddenly recall an evening in front of the TV, a childhood moment, a familiar phrase that once made your whole family laugh, then Jackie is still there. No longer in form or image, but in feeling. In the light he left behind inside us. A light that never fades. Do you remember the first time you saw Jackie Gleason? Maybe it was on a Friday night, when the TV still crackled with static. Maybe it was through that familiar catchphrase, or the laughter that eased the whole family after a long day. Whether it was a vivid memory or just a passing moment, if he ever brought a smile to your face, then that's why we're telling this story. Feel free to share your thoughts, your memories, or even just a simple goodbye in the comments below. So the memory of Jackie Gleason won't be forgotten, but carried on, through each person who still remembers him. If you love stories like this, quiet journeys behind the spotlight, consider subscribing to Final Legacy. Not just to follow, but to help preserve the fading pieces of memory that time tries to erase. Thank you for watching until the very end. We'll see you again, in another story, another life, that once shined bright, and then quietly faded.